Give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rekah Kodash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. Also want to acknowledge all the Akyam who are pushing the truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. And shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. All right, this is Shabai from the GMS Denver, and I'm going to put something on wax. I'm over here at the plantation, and just going to go through Ecclesiasticus 36 through the Spirit. It says, "Have mercy upon us, O Yahweh, the Most High of all, and behold us, and send thy fear upon all the nations that seek not after thee." All right, so you see that's a separation there. It's talking about, have mercy on us, meaning the Israelites, meaning specifically the elect. It says, send thy fear upon all the nations that seek not after thee. And really that applies to any of the heathen, or all the heathen, and any of the 2/3 that are not seeking after Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. All right? Because if you're sincere and if you're of the elect, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is going to reveal himself to you. You see? It says, lift up thy hand against the strange nations and let them see thy power. And who are the strange nations? The strange nations are all these countries that are, they don't follow the laws of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Really, there's not a country on the planet that, follows Yahweh Bashem Yahushai's rules and laws and statutes and commandments, because, these are all strange nations. These are not set up like they will be in the kingdom, where every nation is gonna follow the ways of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Matter of fact, it says the nation that does not, follow the ways of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, that same nation shall perish. I think it tells you that in Isaiah 60, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Okay. So I looked at the wrong one. Let me see. Yeah, Isaiah 60, I was right. Verse 12, it says, for the nation and the kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish. Yeah, those nations shall be utterly wasted. All right, so yeah, those strange nations, they're going to perish. They will perish, when the destruction comes. But then when the kingdom's in place, if you got the heathen nations and they're not seeking after the ways of our power, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, then that nation's gonna be dismissed, which is proof, because after 1,000 years, the household of Esau is going to be eradicated after 1,000 years of hardcore bondage, hardcore slavery in the kingdom. All right, so we got verse 4. It says, as thou was sanctified in us before them, so be thou magnified among them before us. Right? And he sanctified it. You think the 2/3 are sanctified? The Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is sanctified in them? The answer is no, because they're not even calling on those true names. They're not even acknowledging when they go to pray or worship. The images that pops in their head are the images of the anti-Hamashiach, which is that cracker Jesus, and that God who he looks like a member of fucking ZZ Top or some shit. You know what I mean? He don't look like the way the scriptures describe him, with woolly hair and dark skin, which would be likened unto a so-called black person. All right, a black man. All right, so let's keep reading. Verse 5, and let them know thee as we have known thee, that there is no power but only thou, O the Most High Yahweh. And they're all going to find out. They're going to find out the hard way. Even 2/3 of our own people are going to find out the hard way who the true power is, who the true God of the Bible is. All right, which his name is Yahweh and his son's name is Yahweh Shai. All right, verse 6, show new signs and make other strange wonders. Glorify thy hand and thy right arm, that they may set forth thy wondrous works. All right. Seven, raise up indignation and pour out wrath. Take away the adversary and destroy the enemy. And we know that eventually Yahweh Bashem Yeshai is going to take out the adversary. All right. Obadiah 1:18, it says, in the house of Jacob shall be a fire, in the house of Joseph a flame, in the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for Yahweh Bashem Yeshai has spoken it. Right, so there's not going to be, any of the house of Esau remaining. Like I told you, that nation's going to perish. It's even going to perish after 1,000 years of slavery in the kingdom. Ecclesiasticus 36, and where am I at? You see, let's read that again. Raise up indignation and pour out wrath. Take away the adversary and destroy the enemy. Sake the time short, remember the covenant, and let them declare thy wonderful works. And who are the covenants made with? The covenants have always been made with the Israelites, you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. That's who belongs the covenant, right? It tells you in Romans 9 that that's who the covenants belong to. It says, who are Israelites, Romans 9:4, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of the Most High and the promises. So the Israelites, the covenants belongs to us. The agreements are between our forefathers and Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And we become our forefathers because of the reincarnation, regeneration. So we are our forefathers, really. But Ecclesiastes 36, and that never changes. Ecclesiastes 36 and 8, it says, 9. Let him that escapeth be consumed by the rage of the fire, and let them perish that oppress the people. All right? So the ones who are in a spirit of oppressing us, those people are going to perish. And right now, the Edomites, they've got us under oppression. That's why we got to be subject to payments. We work with bags with holes in them. We don't get no rest here. We don't get to enjoy our kids. These are all part of the curses, right? So who's the biggest oppressor, over the Israelites? And the answer is Esau, Edom. That's why he's going to be utterly destroyed after 1,000 years of hardcore slavery in the kingdom. Verse 10, smite in sunder the heads of the rulers of the heathen, that say there is none but we. And in their pride, they think their dwellings will last forever. They think their kingdom will have no end. But we know the prophecies. We know that Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is going to put to end this kingdom that Esau Edom is ruling right now in wickedness. All right? And the heads of the rulers of the heathen, that means they're kings. Whether it's Putin, Vladimir Putin from Russia, Donald J. Trump from Babylon, America, the Most High, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, is going to smite in sunder, meaning cut them in half and strike them, right? The heads of the rulers of the heathen. It says, and gather all the tribes of Jacob together, and inherit thou them as from the beginning. So, that's going to happen too. Matthew 24:31. Yahweh Bashem Yahushua is going to gather the tribes of Israel, going to gather the elect, I should say. And they're going to receive salvation, and we're going to, bring forth the kingdom with our dominion, and everybody's going to be happy, Even the heathen will be happy when we're in power. Proverbs 29:2, it tells you that. It says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. You see that? So when the righteous are in authority, meaning the Israelites, people are going to rejoice, including the heathen nations which will be under us. All right, but when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. That's why you have war. That's why you have tariffs. That's why you have oppression. That's why you have homelessness. That's why you have crackheads. Look at the state of Babylon, America. The kingdom is going to be nothing like that. Because why? Because the righteous will be in authority. All right? Ecclesiasticus 36 and 12, it says, O Yahweh, have mercy upon the people that is called by thy name, and upon Israel, whom thou hast named thy firstborn. Right, called by thy name, Yasharallah, sons of the power, princes of the power. Verse 13, O be merciful unto Jerusalem, thy holy city, the place of thy rest. Right, so we're not going to get no rest until we're set up back in Jerusalem, until the 12 tribes are, restored, and this is going to happen during in the kingdom. This is going to happen when we're back in our land. All right, over there, yes, it's in the Middle East, it's in Jerusalem, but that actually belongs to the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. That's not the dwelling place of the heathen. That's our place, but it's not going to be restored, until the kingdom, until Yahweh Bashem Yahushai delivers us, and we get back to our land. Verse 14, fill Sion with thine unspeakable oracles, and thy people with thy glory. Give testimony unto those that have possessed from the beginning, and raise up the prophets that have been in thy name. Right. And he is raising us up. He's giving us life by giving us this understanding of the scripture. All right. The breath, when he breathes on us, that means he gives us life. And the breath is having understanding for the scriptures, having the knowledge. This is what gives us the life. This is what allows us to stand up on our feet. You think of Ezekiel, the 37th chapter, and it talks about how, the bones, they were dry and they were dead, but then he breathed life upon them, and that was us. The life is the understanding of the scripture, knowing what the prophecies entail. That gives us hope, that gives us life, that gives us understanding. See? 16, reward them that wait for thee, and let thy prophets be found faithful. And let the true prophets be found faithful. We're the beginning of the elect, the first fruits, the teachers. I pray that I'm found faithful. I pray, as a member of this ministry, you should always be praying that Yahweh Bashem Yahushai doesn't take the spirit off you. You want to be found faithful. You want to endure to the very end. All right? Like it says here, well, let's get in the prayer that King David said, Psalm 51:11, it says, cast me not away from thy presence, and take not thy Holy Spirit from me. You see, and this is a humble, righteous prayer that the elect, and especially the prophets, we should say this every day. Because we don't want to be away from the mercies of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. You see? We want to be in good standing. We want to be, like it said here, faithful. We want to be found faithful. All right? Verse 17, O Yahweh, hear the prayer of thy servants according to the blessing of Aaron over thy people, that all they which dwell upon the earth may know that thou art Yahweh and the eternal power. All right? So hear the prayer of thy servants. And you got to know who the true servants are, And those are those men, and there are also some women that are calling on the true names of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, that are repenting, coming into the fold, learning the precepts, learning the laws, learning the statutes, learning the commandments, keeping the laws, statutes, commandments to the best of our ability, so that we can be found faithful. At the end of the day, that's what it is. We want to be found faithful, I'll name this lesson, let thy prophets be found faithful. Verse 18, the belly devoureth all meats, yet is one meat better than another, right? Isn't that the truth? You could eat all kind of different meats. You could eat a hamburger. You could eat a bologna sandwich. A beef bologna, I should say that. You could eat all these different meats. But which one's going to satisfy? Which one's going to taste the best? You see? And that's how it is with these philosophies. There's only going to be one philosophy that's going to be the true philosophy, and that's going to be the best. Right? A false doctrine would be likened unto like some pork bologna, while the true doctrine might be likened into like a high-end, ribeye steak, or even a choice cut, ribeye, which is comparing steak to bologna. You see what I'm saying? That's how it is with this knowledge. In 19, it says, as the palate tasted diverse kinds of venison. I'm talking about your taste buds, really, your mouth. So doth an heart of understanding false speeches, right? So when you've tasted that delicious filet mignon, and somebody try to give you some fucking pork bologna, or any type of bologna, right, or a lesser meat, even like a turkey breast, especially if that shit's processed, that ain't good for you. You're gonna eat. You're gonna be able to discern the false doctrines, the false prophecies, in the same fashion that you wouldn't be fooled if somebody said, "Hey, here's a filet mignon," and they give you a fucking piece of beef bologna. You see what I'm saying? You ain't gonna fall for that shit. That's the same thing with this knowledge and this truth. All right, verse 20. A froward heart causeth heaviness, but a man of experience will recompense him. A woman will receive every man, yet one daughter is better than another. All right, and really, the daughter that would be better would be the daughter that hearkens to the knowledge, hearkens to the truth. The beauty of a woman cheereth the countenance, and a man loveth nothing better. Right? You get a beautiful woman, and you pull a baddie, and she, she's in subjection, she's in order. That there ain't nothing better than that. That'll make a man happy. You pull this beautiful woman, and really the beauty is going to be from within, right? That's really going to be the test. And that's hard to find, a woman who's beautiful inside and out, That's damn hard to find, especially in these times, because these women, they've got their pride and their egos, and their power right now is at an all-time high. And because the wicked are ruling, everything's ass backwards. The men are supposed to be in control, not these women. But here in Babylon, America, basically you have these women are wearing the pants in the majority of these weak-ass relationships. That's why they don't work out, because these relationships are out of order. All right, verse 23. If there be kindness, meekness, and comfort in her tongue, then is not her husband like other men. He that getteth a wife beginneth a possession, a help like unto himself, and a pillar of rest. All right, so don't forget that. A wife is actually your possession. That's why, you have a woman, you tell her, what do you say? This is my woman. My woman, my being the key word, meaning a possession. And these women are such ass backwards right now in their mindsets, that they don't want to be called a possession. They think that's an insult, right? But a woman who's righteous, and a woman who's humble, and a woman who's in order will love to be called a possession by the man that she loves. See? Verse 25. Where no hedges, there is the possession is spoiled, and he that hath no wife will wander up and down mourning. Who will trust a thief well appointed that skippeth from city to city? So who will believe a man that hath no house, and lodgeth whithersoever the night taketh him? Right. So just this wanderer, you look at, like in Babylon, you got a lot of these men with no homes. And really the truth is the home, You have support, you have stability, you have wisdom when you're growing in the spirit of Yahweh B'Shem Yoshai. That's actually giving you a home, right? That gives you that tabernacle. You come into the tabernacle of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, and all of a sudden you're a high value man. But when you're not in the hedge, you're not in the truth, you're really you're really useless in the eyes of the Most High. You're like that dweller who dwells everywhere, that vagabond, that like almost like a bum, you know. You don't have a home. And it says in here in 25, where there's no hedge, the possession is spoiled. Right. That goes for your women, man. If your woman, you let her dress like a whore, and she's not in modest apparel, then every single man has an opportunity to lust after your wife and shit like that, you know. Then guess what? That could be spoiled, meaning someone else could end up having it. And women are weak; they're the weaker vessel, and they like attention. And it doesn't take much to entice these women, and they end up committing adultery, So you gotta actually choose choose right. There's a scripture here in 26. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, right here. Ecclesiastes 26 and 20, it says, when thou hast gotten a fruitful possession through all the field, meaning all these women, that's, how they say that, how they say play in the field. Well, this is talking about a field, like just imagine a field of women. You want to make sure you take a good one, right? And not just because she's got a big old ass and some big old titties, but because hopefully she has big ass, big titties, but also she's got a sound mind and a heart that can, she can be in order. She can become a subject unto you, meaning follow you. It says, when thou hast gotten a fruitful possession through all the field, sow it with thine own seed, trusting in the goodness of thy stock. All right? So when you make sure you get a good one, because the stock goes into people, goes into, your offspring, goes into your family. Make sure you get a woman of good stock. You don't want to get a fucking, a woman who's been divorced 7 times, and then all of a sudden you want to make her your wife, and you're gonna try to, basically make up for all the fucking past relationships she's had. And when I say 7, it's a complete number. It could be a multiple. If the more men a woman's had, the more fucked up she's gonna be, man. I can tell you that right now. If she's been promiscuous and been a whore out there her whole life, man, that woman has a million problems and it has a lot going on, She's a busybody. She's a gad abroad. She's a gadder. A gadder is somebody who's socially busy all the time, You don't want one of them women that she's always everywhere, you know what I'm saying? She's always in the social settings, whether it be work, whether it be at the gym, whether she goes to the clubs and she's well known at the bar and shit like that. You ain't want to be putting your seed in that type of woman, You end up having you don't want to knock up and impregnate someone that's not of goodness of thy stock, you see. So I got to get back to work. I want to give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakak Kodash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. Also want to acknowledge all the Akim who are pushing the truth with sincerity throughout the 4 corners of the earth. Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. Shalom.